That's a big question. Zou ik het halen aus dem Out.
And try to understand it.
Hi, Mr. Nolan. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Fine, thank you very much. There is a question in the movie that it was especially intriguing for me, and is that can we communicate with the future? And they talk about email and credit cards, and anything that goes to the record talks to the future. You know, and following this same narrative or idea, also a movie is constantly communicating with the future. You know, the movie is the talking in this case. So what are you trying to say to the future with this movie?
That's a big question. I mean, yes, the film introduces the idea that everything we do speaks to the future, and everything we put in the record. And so certainly a film speaks to the time it's made and its contemporary audience. But I think as a filmmaker, I'm always somewhat mindful of the idea that people will be able to watch it and will be watching it further into the future. And I think films do, they change their resonances over time. And I think the attempt as a filmmaker is to make something that has lasting appeal, that deals with fundamentals somehow. And so this is a story obviously about time. It's an entertainment and it's a thrill ride for the audience. But certainly what I'm trying to do is introduce some different ways of looking at things or looking at the world, and try and engage the audience in thinking a little bit differently about the world around them.
You got something. Not gonna like it.
Time isn't the problem. Getting out alive is the problem.
And in Tenet, we have two kind of characters. You know, it's a normal person and the same person, but this has his entropy inverted, you know. And in the movie, they have to survive. But the first one, I think he has to trust in his instinct, and the second one, he has to trust but in his experience. So I would like to know which one is better for you, instinct or experience?
I think that's a really eloquent and specific way of summarizing those two differences, that somehow feels spoiler-free as well, which is good. But I think for me, really what the film is saying is that both are important and have to be in balance. And so Clémence Poésy, early on, when she's explaining the concept of inversion to the protagonist, she says, don't try to understand it, feel it. And he interprets that correctly as meaning use your instincts. And he is the type of operative, he's the type of figure who has to be continually using his instincts because things are happening so fast, and he doesn't have time to analyze everything. But a lot of those instincts are developed and refined through experience. And so I think the two things are not entirely separate. They need to harmonize.
Work together, you know?
Mm.
From here. Hasn't happened yet.
And the audiences, at least your audience, they don't like simple answers. And that's why we think that your filmography is so fascinating and so great, because you trust in us and you give us the opportunity to follow certain elements through a movie, especially a movie like Tenet. So, Mr. Nolan, you always choose not to tell us certain details. So I would like to know, do you choose the unanswered questions since the beginning or at the end of the writing and creative process?
I mean, that's a hard question to answer because as a writer-director, you're trying to view the project very much the way Neil's character, for example, views time and views what's going on in Tenet, as you eventually find out, you're trying not to view it as a linear path. You're trying to look ahead, but you're also having to go on the journey with the characters. And until you get there, you can't know for certain what's going to be important and what's not. So you start off with notions about what the big questions of the film would be and about what perhaps the big ambiguities might be, the ways in which the characters get lost in things. But you also have to be true to your experience of passing through the story with the characters. And so those things can develop. So sometimes they're very specific in my head, and sometimes they're things that emerge from the process of going through the story with the characters. But they all are things that I've considered and determined at script stage before I've got onto the floor and started making the film. They're not accidental ambiguities. They're things that hopefully emerge from the terms of the story itself.
Okay, that's very interesting. And you have said that time is an idea, and it's also a very human idea that it's constantly changing. And that happens with the perception of time. It's constantly changing. And it's very important, considering everything that is happening at this very moment. We experience time different from a couple of months ago. So the situation has changed your idea of how we feel and experience time?
I think for all of us, time is very elastic. At the best of times, it's very elastic, and right down to the specifics of, are you engaged or are you bored, that kind of thing. And I think obviously with the situation in the world today and the transformation to people's lives and the way in which they have to live their lives and the inward focus of a lot of our lives right now, it definitely distorts the idea of time. And I think in some ways, an extreme situation like this is just highlighting for us something that we don't usually notice quite so much, which is how elastic the sensation of time passing is, and how dependent it is on our situation. And so I think it's something we're all quite mindful of now. One of the things that I love about cinema and about cinematic storytelling is that each film has its own time in which it takes place. Okay. And I think that's a fascinating mechanism. It's one of the reasons we love to escape to the movies. And I think that what I try to do in my films is I try to slightly draw attention to that relationship between movies and time. Most films, any regular film, it has a very sophisticated relationship between its own timescale and the audience sitting there watching it. But most films hide that mechanism. They take it for granted. They don't make people think about it. I kind of like the idea of exposing the mechanism and engaging the audience in a conversation about it.
Okay, that's all, Mr. Nolan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.